Today, we're exploring Safed, a city perched high up in the mountains of the Galilee. And, it's a place with a secret, a kind of paradox that's built right into its very streets. It's a city that seems to completely defy the normal rules of how cities are supposed to grow. Let's dig in.
So here's the central riddle of Safed, the thing that makes it so fascinating. In just about any other ancient city in the world, you start at the oldest part, usually the highest point, the citadel, and you walk downhill into the more modern neighborhoods. But in Safed, it's the complete opposite. As you walk down the hill, you are literally walking back in time. So how on earth is that even possible? I mean, think about it. A typical ancient city starts at the peak, right, for defense, and over hundreds of years, it expands downwards. Safed did the complete reverse. Its oldest residential areas are way down at the bottom, which means the city had to literally climb its way up the mountain over the centuries. It's a city built backwards.
To solve this puzzle, here's how we're going to walk through Safed's history. First, we'll crack the riddle of its layout. Then we're going to explore the massive castle that started it all. After that, we'll uncover a golden age of mysticism that totally defined the city, witness a really pivotal battle from 1948, and finally, see how this incredible past shapes Safed's living legacy today.
Okay, so let's unravel this core mystery. How did Safed get so inverted, where every street you walk down takes you a century back?
So here's the big aha moment. It all goes back to the 13th century. The Crusaders built this enormous citadel right on the summit. It was the center of everything. But here's the thing. They didn't allow Jews or Muslims to live inside those fortress walls. So what do? Well, you settle downhill, right near the essential water springs. But then, as those communities grew, they couldn't just keep building further down. That was all agricultural land. Their only option was to build up the mountain, inching closer and closer to the very center they were locked out of. And then, eventually, that citadel at the top, it was destroyed, leaving the city with its history permanently upside down. Okay, so let's climb to the top of that mountain and see how this all kicked off. Because that citadel wasn't just some military fort. No, it was a powerful statement in a centuries-long battle of faith. It was a structure built out of pure conviction. To really get this castle, you have to understand the year it was built, 1240. In the Jewish calendar, that was the year 5000. It was the millennium. And just like any millennium, it was absolutely buzzing with intense expectation. There was this widespread belief that this was it. This was the year the Messiah would finally arrive.
Now, the Crusaders, they knew all about this messianic fervor brewing in the Galilee. So, in that exact year, 1240, the Bishop of Marseille comes to Safed and builds the biggest castle in the entire Middle East. This wasn't about military strategy. It was a theological weapon. A massive, unavoidable statement in stone designed to prove to the Jewish people that their hopes for a Messiah were completely in vain. But the story doesn't stop there. In 1266, the Mamluk Sultan, Baybars, he conquers the castle. And to make his own statement, he doesn't just take it over. He builds this enormous, 60-meter-tall round tower right in the middle of it. A historian back in the 14th century said it was like the Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. I mean, the message couldn't be clearer. Islam had now triumphed over Christianity on the very stage Christianity had built to challenge Judaism. And just to make sure nobody missed the point, Baybars left his personal brand everywhere. Archaeologists have found his emblem, a lion, carved right into the gatehouse. It was a clear warning to anyone who approached. You are now entering the domain of a very, very powerful ruler. All right, now let's go back downhill and a few centuries forward to the 1500s. After the expulsion from Spain, Safed becomes the global center for this revolutionary new idea in Jewish thought. It's a spiritual golden age, and it's all about one quest, to not just wait for redemption, but to actively bring it about. The central idea that just exploded here was practical mysticism. For thousands of years, the belief was basically that you just had to sit back and wait for the Messiah to show up. But the mystics of Safed said, no, we can make it happen. They believed that through very specific spiritual actions, prayers, and just righteous living, they themselves could actually trigger redemption. The power was literally in their hands. And they had a whole roadmap worked out for how this was going to unfold. First, the Messiah would appear nearby at the tomb of the great mystic Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. From there, he'd journey to Safed, then go down to Tiberias, and finally make his way to Jerusalem. Safed wasn't just a stop. It was an absolutely crucial, can't-skip-it part of the plan. There's this incredibly powerful story about the greatest of these mystics, Rabbi Isaac Luria, known as the Ari. One Friday afternoon, he turns to his students and says, "Who wants to come with me to Jerusalem right now to welcome the Sabbath?" And they're all confused, saying it's way too late to make the journey. And the Ari's response was this quote. He was telling them they had just missed the moment. Their collective action, their willingness to just get up and go, was the final piece of the puzzle. It wasn't about waiting for the Messiah to come, it was about all of us bringing him. Now let's jump way forward in time. This idea that human action could shape destiny, well, it would reappear in Safed in a dramatically different way. We're going to 1948, during Israel's War of Independence, for a battle where a strange series of events and one powerful rumor led to a completely unbelievable outcome. So, to get a handle on this battle, you just have to look at the numbers. In April 1948, Safed's population was around 12,000 Arabs and only 1,200 Jews. As things got heated, the Jewish quarter found itself under siege, its residents just vastly outnumbered and outgunned. We're talking 10 to 1. The Jewish defenders had hardly any weapons, but they did have this thing, the Davidka. It was a homemade mortar that was famously terrible at hitting anything, but it had one incredible asset. It made a deafening, terrifyingly loud noise that nobody had ever heard before. And this brings us to the night of May 10th. The Jewish forces launch an attack and they fire these Davika mortars, filling the night with this incredible boom. The very next morning, a completely unseasonal torrential rainstorm breaks out. And then a rumor starts to spread like wildfire. A rumor that connected that strange sound with that strange rain. The rumor, according to historical accounts from the Jewish fighters, was that they were using atom bombs. I mean, think about it. The world had just heard about Hiroshima a few years earlier. A big boom followed by strange rain. So accounts from the time described this rumor spreading and causing absolute panic. In the aftermath, the city's Arab residents had departed. Palmach fighters entering the city described finding it empty, with food reportedly still on the stoves. So, after centuries of theological battles, mystical revolutions, and modern warfare, what exactly is Safed today? Let's take a look at how all these different layers of history have created the city's unique living legacy. Well, today, Safa is this fascinating mix of all its histories. The legacy of the mystics is still so alive, it's a world center for the study of Kabbalah. The historic Arab quarter, empty after the 1948 battle, was transformed into a now famous artist colony. And the result is this site of pilgrimage for spiritual seekers and history buffs alike. It's really a living museum, where every single alleyway tells a piece of this incredibly complex story. Which leaves us with one final thought. In a city where history isn't just buried under your feet, but is the actual map you use to get around, how is the next chapter being written? What does the future look like for a city that was built backwards?